G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Graham Brown from Pikkal. He's based in Singapore. Thanks for your time today, Graham.
It's great to be here, Troy. Thanks for the invite.
Let's start with how we know each other. So Liza from B2B.fm reached out and thought you might be a good guest to come on the cast.
Yeah, well, small business passion. I love business. I'm an entrepreneur I haven't had a proper job for well over 20 years. So
Me too. 22 at the moment.
There you go.
99. 23.
Well, I heard this may come out around about Independence Day. So
yeah, that's
we'll
right.
Be celebrating our independence.
4th of July, yeah. Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
So there are two parts of the business. We are a podcast agency. That's where we started. That's what Pikkal is. And we also have a podcast guesting agency, which is help thought leaders get booked and speak on other people's podcasts. So there's two revenue streams there. They're effectively two different businesses, but they all run under the same house.
Right. So with the podcasting business, maybe explain to the audience a bit about the services offered there and if there's any niches you focus on particularly.
Yeah, we focus. Yeah, I like the idea of niche because there's plenty of podcast agencies out there. I'm always a great believer is find an unsexy niche that nobody else wants to service and double down on it, because there's always a lot of money to be made where others don't want to play. And for us, where everybody's kind of getting into what we call consumer podcasts, so the narrative, the true crimes, the history podcasts, we focus purely on corporate. So our clients are investment banks, financial services, management consultancies, the stuff that people don't want to do because it ain't going to win any awards, and you're not going to get like a 50-part deep audio narrative out of it. So that's the niche that we serve. But I think it requires a different mindset. But once you can service that niche, then you've got a very stable revenue stream.
Yep, great. How did you start out?
Well, this business started in 2018 and starting really setting up a podcast studio, not having a clue how we're going to make money out of it. So people would ask me, how are you going to make money out of this? Let me get back to you on that. And the thing is, Troy, there wasn't a playbook.
Yeah.
It's very, a lot of people talk about being a first mover advantage, but there are huge disadvantages in being a first mover, which is that firstly, you have to educate your market, all these kind of things. And, all that you are taking a massive risk and there are no models to work with. You're like, what's the charging model? You've got to kind of experiment and learn it all yourself. So we really learn it all through mistakes and through experiments.
Starting out in 2018, I mean, podcasts have been around probably for 10 or 12 years, but even back in 2018, 4 years ago, it still wasn't a huge take up by people. I think maybe 5 or 6% of people around that time would have been listening to podcasts. It's also been gaining a lot of momentum since then. So,
well, imagine that plus being in Asia.
Yes.
So that's even more extreme, isn't it? It's people like you're crazy. What the hell are you doing? Like, it was all like, why do you want to do podcasts? It's going to be video. Like the future's video, or the future is I don't have time to listen to a podcast. Yeah. That's what everybody was saying. So it was a bet, but sometimes the bets do pay off.
But it's also one of the best mediums for engagement and loyalty. Well, I heard something the other day that podcasts, because people often listen to them when they're exercising or driving the car, which you can't really watch videos, obviously, when you're doing those. So it is a good medium.
I would also say, my bet was on the big macro, which was I'm an artificial intelligence graduate, from the 90s.
Yeah.
And it was like, you can be ahead of the curve, but then like the curve didn't even exist back then. So I was kind of betting on the fact that, as we become more, as business becomes more geared towards data and AI and ML and, effectively non-human stuff, we'll push into the more human things. And, I felt like the human aspect of podcasting was really, it was the long-term bet. in the same way that, for example, mobile phones, my former business in 2000s was a mobile phone business. And I started that business when everybody's saying, like, we don't do kids. And I was saying the future is young people and mobile phones, 1998, right? So it's kind of a similar kind of thing. You read the future signals, right? The distant signals, and you say, actually, I can see where this could be going and making a bet on it. And then it's just a case of how do you reduce the risk of that bet such that you can make money out of it.
Yep. I want to dive a bit into your business career in a minute, but so in 2018, how old were you when you started Pikkal Up?
Let's see, 50 minus 4.
46.
I've had enough. That's right. You got it.
Yeah. And so maybe go back to the start, like the first business that you started, what year, and what made you jump from, I assume you had a job out of university?
Well, my job out of university was teach English in Japan.
Yep.
So that was like, the only qualification you needed was to speak English.
Yeah.
I could do that. So coming back from Japan, I wanted to start a business. Didn't have, you see, the thing is, like today, there's a lot of material, there's a lot of content, there's a lot of help out there if you want to start a business. You've got like startup accelerators, you've got things like the Lean Startup, which, when I started a business, that wasn't published. That was 10 years before that thing was going to be published. So all this idea of like MVP and like building a business from scratch didn't exist. Like, the only people I knew that had businesses or were self-employed back then were plumbers and electricians. Yep. It's a different type of world. So I was looking very hard for a business and just came across this idea that at the time people were selling mobile phones, which were like bricks. And I'd been living in Japan. I saw young people use mobile phones. And I thought, actually, I could write about this. So I wrote a report and then went and knocked on all the doors of the mobile phone companies in 1998. So the Selcos and the handset manufacturers, and they all told me to a man, like, we don't do kids. Not interested. Like the future is like road warriors. Road warriors are these middle-aged guys with bricks.
Yep.
But I said, I've seen the future. And, obviously then you can see how that played out over the next 10 years. But that was my first business. It was trying to find some in where people didn't see what was coming next because everybody's kind of focused on the now.
Yep. And so was that year 2000 you started that business or
98?
98. And how long did you have that business for and how did you exit?
So total of 13 years, unlucky for some. Yep. It grew really fast. So, mobile. So we were selling research to mobile phone companies and everybody who was interested in mobile phones. So, you could name people like Disney, MTV as clients, every financial services company, and then all the mobile manufacturers globally. So the business grew very, very fast, very profitable, very cash generative from early stage. And we didn't take any investment, started it with literally £100, $200.
Yep.
Grew very fast, expanded, overexpanded, retracted, grew again. And then by sort of the early 2010s, I had enough and wanted out. So I sold my stake to the business partner. It wasn't a ceremonial exit. It wasn't the exit I wanted.
Yep.
But I just kind of had enough and I wanted out. And that was 2012. And then we continued to declutter. We sold all our stuff, me, my wife and my son, and then we went and traveled the world for 6 years.
Wow, great.
So I had enough of business for a while.
Yep. Well, back on Pikkal, do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over the last 4 years?
Yeah, well, where we are now, we do, so we talk about Sing dollars, which is probably like equivalent to Australian. So this year we're on for doing $1 million.
Yep.
So we're across $1 million. We don't have any debt. Investment in terms of the startup capital was a seed round, raised up 120K.
Yep.
It was an F&F round. So really more just to kind of get some buy-in in the model.
F&F as in friends and family?
Friends and family, yeah.
Also known as the 3 Fs or friends and fools.
Hopefully none of them.
No.
So, so those are the main numbers. And, we're growing so obviously the last 4 years have been quite strange. Like it's a hard, this may be it forever. It may always be strange, but you know, if you think about last 2 years with COVID, obviously a lot of business was impacted. So 2019 was a tough year. Like 2018, we were just figuring it out. 2019 was a tough year, obviously because of everything that happened. You know, corporates kind of battened down the hatches. 2020 was a sort of story of two halves, and then 2021 grew really fast, right?
Right.
So, you know, really COVID's been good to us. And, you know, I think if you break the business down, I think you always have to, as a founder, is you try and understand the phases which you're going through, and then adapt to use the metrics and the mindsets for each phase. And every phase is different. You know, you've got to understand, what phase am I in right now? And therefore, what strategy should I approach? You know, because, you know, my mistake from the last business, 12 years of just everything in phase one. It's like, you know, just keep doing this.
Yeah.
But this was a lot wiser, hopefully.
Yeah. And how many team members did you start with, full-time equivalents, and where are you at now?
So myself included, we started with 3, and we have 3.
Right. Great. Excellent. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
I don't think it was like a binary successful or not successful. There's been lots of small wins. You know, obviously getting the first client was important. The first month we broke even was important. These are all wins. That's when we knew we were successful. I think, again, it goes back to the stages. So, you know, if you think about the stages, they define success.
Yep.
So, you know, stage 1 is sort of survival. It's like, will people actually buy this podcast thing? And so if you can go from 0 to 1 in that stage, that's a success. If you can sell it, it's a success. You've proved the concept, right? And then the second stage is the product market fit, which is, you know, we're successful if we can make the unit economics work, which is, can we supply this service profitably, sustainably, and consistently, right? You know, you can sell one, but what happens if you're then servicing that client and you can't get any more clients, right? Yep. Or what happens if you service it at a loss, which a lot of small businesses do? You know, they look at the unit economics and they're losing money on every client.
Yeah.
You know, the 80-20 rule, that once they analyze it, they'll see that 80% of their clients are losing their money.
Yes.
So that's the second, you know, once you've got that worked out and you can analyze the unit economics, then you can say you're successful. And now where we are is scale, which is, you know, can I continue to grow this? Can I create a demand engine in the business, which is like generate consistent leads? Because a lot of it, you know, as a small business, a founder, a lot of your business development, your leads, is dependent on you. Like, you know, I know these guys, these people I can talk to, this person refers me, but you've got to get out of that. You've got to, if you want to grow the business, you've got to get beyond that. So it's a success when you can sustainably generate a demand engine, which continues to generate business when you're not there.
Yeah.
That's the next stage. And I can say when we hit that point, we're a success.
What does success look like to you?
On a personal level, I would say, I mean, this is a really good question, because ultimately it's whatever you think success is, right? So my definition of success, Troy, is going to be different to yours, right? Yeah. And that's really important, because each and every one to their own, right? And I feel that success is, it's like the Bob Dylan quote, is like, a man's a success when he wakes up in the morning, goes to bed at night, and in between does what the hell he likes.
What song is that from?
I don't know.
It's a great one. Use that.
It's a great, but it is, to me, it's like, okay, I'm going to have that on my epitaph, right? Carve it away. But that's it, right? You know, like we as entrepreneurs, I don't think, I mean, money is kind of like the score.
Yes.
Right? You know, it's like you play, whether it's cricket or rugby or football or whatever, the score is like, you know, okay, I'm winning, I'm not winning. Like I did better, I did worse. Like it's improving, it's getting worse. That's it. That's the score. But like, that's not what you do it for, right? And for me, like success is, do I still get to play the game?
Yeah.
Success is playing the game. And I think that is, to me, is like, it's like, you know, what makes you happy is do more of what makes you happy.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not like I'm going to get to 50 million, sell the business, and then boom, you know, float off into the sunset. Yeah. That doesn't work like that, does it? Like we've all kind of thought that was what it was going to be like when we were younger, then realized actually that's not the reality, right? So the key is like success is like, you know, are you playing the game that you want to play?
Yep.
And are you able to do it, right? And obviously money's part of that because it keeps the thing going, but it's not the reason you're doing it, right?
Yep. number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Build consistency, predictability in your business. Like, as a founder, your goal as a business founder is to reduce uncertainty. I mean, if you think about all of it, the reason you're selling your product is because you can do it at a cost less than the market, right? That's the point. And that's really down to uncertainty. So when it comes to marketing, the goal is really to build a certainty in your marketing. Too much of us rely on kind of these random inbounds. Like, so I get this email, somebody phones me up, or I go to this event. And that's no way to grow a business. You've got to build a demand engine where you can know consistently, week on week, that you can get 10 leads or whatever it is that you need to run the business. You can get 10 leads every week on week. So if you start with that assumption, then my advice to your listeners is like, okay, if I need to get 10 leads every week, what do I need to build to do that? What systems do I need in place to do that? What needs to happen? What do I need to spend to get to that point? Because even though that may be a really, really hard, and that may break you trying to get to that point, because it actually is really hard to do that, that is actually how you're going to grow the business.
And how did you fund Pikkal? Apart from the seed round of 120 grand, any other like bank finance or?
No, it was all so seed round, and then obviously not taking a salary for like typical sort of founder thing in the first year, and then after that, like we were breaking even, so it wasn't long.
Yeah,
but we didn't. I mean, we could have gone out and raised a bigger round, but it's like we didn't even know what the business model was at that stage. So what would be the point of raising a big round if you're just going to spend on processes where you don't even know what the model is yet, right? So it was a case of let's figure it out. And I think you kind of need that sort of, in that survival mode, you need that kind of edge, that to really figure it out. If you're comfortable, you've got a lot of money in the bank, that's not necessarily a great thing.
Yep. And did you have any other business partners that started with you before the seed round?
No, it was all me.
Just
so this time, in the last business, I went in 50-50 with a partner, but this one I went in 100%.
Yeah. Yes, something I'm more in favor of these days.
Why is that? Is with your age, you feel more confident of doing it?
I think with age comes wisdom, Graham. I've had, let me think what I'm up to now, because I did actually buy into another business at the start of this year with two mates. I rarely go into business with other people these days, but I think I've had 29 business partners and 15 businesses across 3 countries, so UK, New Zealand, and Australia. So I've seen a lot of shit go on with business partners, and even shareholders aren't in the business, like business partners. So the less people involved in a business in that level, with a shareholder or business partners working the business, for me, the better. So
I think that's good advice, and you've learned that the hard way, like I did as well. So
I used to have hair when I started in business 23 and it wasn't grey.
How do we all? That's the challenge. This is it, though, Troy. It's like, it's fun to start a business with your mates when you're young, and to some extent, it's okay when you're young and doing it. But as you get older, you're more confident you can start a business on your own, and actually, it works out better in many cases because you just got to drive this thing forward. If you think it's when you grow as well, if you have a business with somebody, I mean, I had a business with a partner, and 12 years, a lot changes. Like life changes, like families come and go, all these kind of things happen, right? And so needs change as well.
Yep.
That's the important thing. It's like people change. And so, after some time, people will start, going in different directions. And that's what makes it hard. I think, where you have that sort of perfect relationship, that's the minority, right?
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I mean, if I wasn't doing this, then I would do it. But if I am, then I would stick all the funding that you talked about into something else, which was an asset as opposed to, a business.
Yep.
So, that's what I think. And I learned that lesson in my first business, which was early on. A mentor advised me, he said, look, Graham, you're going to make money out of the business, but if you want to make real money, take all the money you can out of the business and stick it in an asset. So following his advice, I create a cash generative machine, stick all the money in, well, the cash flow into real estate property. So, after 10 years, it's like, actually, let's have a look at my property portfolio and think, actually, that's not too bad. I'm glad I took his advice because, like in a business, it all kind of gets lost, doesn't it? It's like you've got to have these multiple income streams.
Definitely. And diversify your investments. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
10 grand in the bank.
The early days of the first business?
Oh, in the first business, 10 grand in the bank was a success.
Yeah.
But like in the current business, that was times are hard, right?
Yeah.
I think that wears on you. I mean, you sort of wonder if you could go back and do that again, because there's a lot of mental health. I mean, people talk about mental health. We don't really think about that as entrepreneurs, but the mental wellness of being an entrepreneur and living in that survival mode is quite tough. I certainly felt it aged me.
Yep.
And there were times where I wasn't enjoying it.
Yep.
But I had no choice. So it was probably a good thing I had no choice. So, I mean, what do I learn from it? That it ages you. Yeah. But that's it. You got to get through it. I mean, we all get there through our own pathways, right?
Yep.
Like some people are very good at raising a lot of funds and then just building a team around that.
Yep.
I think we've all got to do it our own ways.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
It's a great question. There's a lot. I mean, people talk a lot about data now as a key part of business, but I'm a massive fan of. I very much inspired in this business by Amazon and Starbucks, which is the idea, and Toyota really. The idea is that even in a small business, is that innovation comes through operational excellence.
Yep.
And you think about Starbucks. Starbucks is about service. It's about having a cup of coffee or whatever service industry you're in, right? And that's a human thing. But actually, to get to that stage, you've got to kind of do all the heavy lifting and automate the processes, and have the data to hand, right? Such that it doesn't all get stored in your head. Yep. So the bit of the business that we've worked on heavily is the data side, which is like datafying everything. So it's like an Amazon warehouse, right? Mm-hmm. Such that, if you ask me in an Amazon warehouse, where's that package for Troy? I say, it's in aisle 2 and somebody's picking it right now. Not like, I don't know, it's like, maybe let me have a look behind these boards, see if the thing's stored there from yesterday, which is kind of like how people run small businesses, right? It's all here, isn't it?
Yep.
But like we started off building it as if this would be a business of 300 people.
Yep.
Especially if, there's only 3 full-timers, but we've got a team of outsourced contractors. So to run that kind of business, like in a warehouse, you've got to have all that data. And actually, the more I do it and the more I see it, the more it pays off. Like customer experience, data, just having really, really good visuals. And I advise any founder this is like, get really good visuals on your business. Like know exactly, and especially with cash flow, for example.
Oh yeah, shit, yeah.
Like that to me, it's like, it takes the fear out of the business. Is like, I know exactly the cash. I mean, zero is great, but like, it doesn't tell you. Like we can tell you how much cash flow we can have in the next 12 months based on current clients and everything, and like the outgoings and whatever. But you can apply it to everything. Like, where is this client? What's the status? Where are they in sort of like meeting their fulfillment level, et cetera, et cetera.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
Just trying to, I don't think I haven't enjoyed fast growth. I mean, I enjoy fast growth because fast growth should mean more profitability. I think when in my previous business, fast growth meant less profitability. I didn't enjoy that because, I guess, it's back to the point about unpredictability. Is like your goal as a founder is to create certainty in the business, right? And you can either, when you get to that third stage, which is scale stage, you can either do that by hiring more and more bodies, or you can do that by building processes and systems. And the first time I ever did that was through bodies because it was easy. Like, oh, it's easy. Let's hire a marketing manager. Let's hire a PR manager. It's like, these are the worst decisions you'll ever make. It's like the amount of times I've thought, let's hire a marketing manager. But actually, if you just figured out the system for getting leads, you don't need a marketing manager. But it's easy to hire a marketing manager, right? I'm not knocking marketing managers, but I said there's lots of hiring decisions we can make. And that isn't enjoyable, because what then happens is you, as the founder, become a people manager.
Yes.
And you lose, like you and I, Troy, if we're entrepreneurs, there's a huge amount of value we add to the business, which is not management.
Yeah.
It's business development, it's networking, all of that. And we lose that because we're ending up doing reviews and trying to firefight teams, right?
Yes.
That's not enjoyable.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
Well, I love the challenge. It's the resistance. That's it. When I was lying on tropical beaches in that semi-retired life, I was bored out of my mind, Troy. Like, I'm an entrepreneur. It's like, I live for that challenge. I live for climbing those mountains. And like, unless you're wired like that, you'll never understand.
No.
I remember my mum used to say, I'm like into Ironman triathlon, and it's the swim, bike, run. Some of you crazy Aussies do a lot of that, right? And I'd be doing all that, and my mum came and watched one once. She says, "You're not enjoying yourself. Like, see me running, like sweating.
Yeah.
You don't look like you're enjoying yourself." And I'm saying, "I'm not. That's not what I'm not doing it to enjoy it. The enjoyment is actually finishing it and doing it and knowing that you can do it. But doing it, it's just suffering."
Yes, I can imagine. My middle brother used to do Iron Man things, but no, I don't think I'll ever be able to do that.
There you go. I told you the Aussies are up to it.
Yeah. What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think there's this constant, isn't it, that we are having to challenge ourselves. My first business was all about, it was very much derailed by ego. It's like, I'm going to be this big success. Now we're like, at one point we had 35 people, with offices in London and India, the back office there. And that mindset was all about, be the CEO. I'm the big, the big cheese here. And then have a great office. We had an office in Chelsea in London, which is like so
very
stupid.
expensive.
Yeah, exactly. It's just dumb. But it was all like, when people ask you, "Oh, how many people in your business now?" It's like 35. They're going, "Wow, you're doing really well." I say, "Yeah, thanks."
Yeah.
But you're not. Yeah. Like, you don't measure the success of a business by the amount of mouths you have to feed.
No.
I'd rather have a business of 3 people, which, was 70% profit margins, right?
Exactly.
So that's the mindset shift. It's like, are you doing it for other people? Which are, in my first business, I did that the hard way. I did it to impress other people and get, accepted, be loved. If you want to get down to the emotional level, is to be accepted by other people, right? And yeah, Graham, you're all right. You're a success. You've arrived.
Yeah.
But now I don't give an SH1T about that, right? To me, that's just like, that's the road to stress. So that's the mindset shift. That's hard, Troy, because like around you, there's people all the time who are sort of reminding you about, this is what success is, right?
Yes.
Oh, we just did a Series A of $1 million. What about you?
Yep.
So I'm making money. So there you go. That's hard.
What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Number one habit. Yeah. There's so many things that you need to be good at, which is tough, but really, really having a good visual, the habit of looking at your data, knowing what the key metrics are, understanding where you are exactly right now. That's a really good habit. And I think that, all the rest comes out of that, like customer service, innovation, that all comes out of that. But, the habit of knowing your numbers and fighting as well to get the numbers is part of it. Because, it's easy just to kind of give up and say, "Oh, it's too hard to get that. I'm not going to bother. We're not going to build that system for that."
It's amazing. I'm a numbers person as well, but just having KPIs that you are tracking, can't remember who said it, but what can be managed, what can be measured can be managed. So if you're aware of those key numbers, you start seeing a number drop off. It does change behavior around the business. It's, for me, being a numbers guy, it's hugely important.
Yeah. And in small businesses, it's hard because we feel we don't have the resources to do that. Time. So much of it's personal, depending on the type of business you have. And if you have a successful business as well, you may have the problem of being successful, which is that you don't need to figure it out. So as you say, it's like, what KPIs? It's like, I'm just making money.
Yeah.
But there'll be a point where you won't. The market would change and then you're screwed, right?
Or you're leaving value on the table because you're not observing a couple of key numbers and making sure they're healthy or improving them. Micro steps, micro habits or changes in your reporting and your systems doesn't have to happen overnight. But if you can just have that philosophy of data is important, 5 numbers to keep an eye on each week or month, it can make a huge difference to your bottom line.
Yeah, I was reading Jeff Bezos in one of his early sort of AGM prospectuses that he sent out to shareholders. He said there was like 170 metrics which they were tracking.
Wow.
So that's the kind of level you need to get into.
Yeah.
And so that was inspiring in a way, thinking, I always thought there was like 3 metrics.
Yeah.
It was like cash in the bank, sales pipeline, those kind of things. Actually, there are a lot. And many are indicators. Many are sort of leading indicators, like what kind of, okay, this metric is going to tell you what things are going to be like in 3 months' time. And metric is...
Yeah, I was going to ask, have you read the book 4 Disciplines of Execution?
It's one of those business books I've probably come across. It's not a Michael Gerber book, is it?
No, it's
the E-Myth guy.
One of Stephen Covey's sons is one of the co-authors.
Oh, Stephen M.R. Covey, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book because they talk a lot about lead indicators. A lot of people look at lag indicators. So what sales did we do last month? Whereas, for example, something that's an more important lever or more powerful lever is saying how many sales calls were booked for the next week, further up the pipeline rather than just the results behind us.
Yeah, that's really important because that's where you build the predictability in the business, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Even that comes down to stress levels in the business.
Yeah.
You're saying, okay, why is the pipeline empty?
Yes.
And if you don't know, then that is the most stressful thing ever because it's like somebody's going to wave a magic wand and a deal will come or not, right? And if you're an entrepreneur, that's a killer.
Yep.
It's like you're either going to eat or you're not next month. But if you can say, well, it's a numbers game, we can book 10 calls upstream.
Yep.
And then it's, what do we need to book 10 calls? Okay, now you say, how do I make that predictable now?
Yep. 20% conversion rate. That means 2 out of those 10 calls will convert. And that's enough to sustain the business.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Google AdWords for that reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for every pay-per-click, doesn't work for every business and every product, but it creates a machine that just, because Google's endless. Like, the amount of people searching for garden furniture is like hundreds of millions, right? And next year they'll still be searching for garden furniture. It's not like there's a finite supply, which is the case with your personal network, right? So that's the beauty of building the machines around those models, and it's worth spending the money to learn it, to learn the numbers, right? And to figure it out.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I love about digital marketing is the measurability of it, but also just the economics of that engine. So one of the businesses I've got, which we started a bit over 2 years ago now, which is an online course for people thinking of starting a distilling business in Australia. We focus on the business side of things. So business plan, market research, marketing plan, financial model, not the technical side of distilling. There's a mob out of Scotland that's the best to do that. But, diving into that and the numbers, the ratio of lifetime value to what you can spend on customer acquisition costs, 3 to 1, those kind of things. Once you've got those, once you know that formula and then you're tracking it, measuring, our Facebook ads or Google ads or LinkedIn ads are coming in at that number, 1/3 of the lifetime value, then it's just a machine that can be scaled.
That's the model you want to build.
Yeah.
To any of your listeners, entrepreneurs who are trying to work out that biz pipeline, that biz dev pipeline, the lead funnel, that's where you've got to look because like you say, Troy, is if you can figure out, okay, this is the average cost of acquisition for that lead, and that's the lifetime value. It's simple. If you can buy it for $50 and sell it for $200, then the question is, how many of those would you buy? As many as you can fill your boots with, right? That's the answer. If it's profitable, if you've got the unit economics right? But it's trying to figure, you have to know that, because what happens is as people go into AdWords, they go into Facebook, they go into Google, they spend thousands, and then they think, oh, it's not working out. Or it works out and then it stops. And you think, why did that stop? And so that's the bit you need to figure out, is know the data. It's like, what is this costing us? And then to know that return is really then to have the predictability in the business where you can say, right, now we just need to increase from $1,000 a month to $5,000.
Yeah. I had a guest on a few months ago who works in this space, and he had a client that was spending $70 million a year on Facebook ads before they went to his digital agency. They didn't know how to spell lifetime value, or LTV, or CAC, customer acquisition costs. They didn't understand the unit economics of their business and the return that you should be getting on those two numbers in the ratio.
70 million. I can understand if they're spending like 7,000, but 70 million.
Suicide.
That's amazing. Somebody
should have lost their job over that.
Yeah, well, somebody's like not doing their job for sure. That's 70 mil. That's amazing. I mean, you can understand you spend $7,000 on it to figure it out, but amazing.
Jump over to growersmallbusiness.com and leave your details to get a short 2-minute email I send on Fridays to help small business owners like you become better leaders. I include some reading or professional development resources I've discovered in the last week.
Perfect. Next question for you. I know you got to peak of 35 in your first business, but can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Well, now when we look at hiring, we always think of hiring as the absolute last option. So you will hire only when that person can bring strategic value to the business. Everything else, I'm a great fan of, I think probably like the Tim Ferriss model. It's like delegate, then eliminate, automate, and outsource where possible. So obviously, I mean, I can code. I'm an AI graduate, going back to the day. I can write code. I can use tools. There's some great tools at the moment to get data. So I would avoid hiring absolutely where possible. So the first thing is, can we eliminate this? Do we need this thing, right? If not, then let's just eliminate it. The second one is like, okay, we can't eliminate it. Can we turn it into an automated process? Right? You can use tools. Can you use any of the data platforms, things like Zapier or any of the kind of automation tools out there which make life a lot easier? There's some great tools for that, right? If you can't do that, then can you outsource it? Can you go onto Upwork and hire somebody there to do that? Because, okay, it may work out more expensive, but it's a tap you can turn off and on, right? You're not emotionally invested in that person. They're not saying, oh, like, when am I going to get my employee benefits or my pay rise and stuff like that. And then the last option is hiring. So I would avoid hiring until the very last minute, until it's impossible to find an alternative. And, I think we underestimate the impact hiring has on us as founders. There's obviously the management part, but there's decision fatigue as well. No, you want somebody you can hire who is going to tell you how they're going to do their job, not somebody you have to train. Obviously, in some industries like service, for example, you can't avoid it. You need people. You can't put robots in, right?
Yet. Yeah,
we're not there yet. We're working on it. But a lot of stuff, I mean, like the hiring the marketing manager or the PR manager, it's like, I think these are things that you can do far more effectively internally, or you can just give it to an agency. Take it away. You may spend more money, but then they're going to just create a machine for you. Just plug that thing and get on with it, right? Don't bother me about what I have to do next or what tasks I have to set you next, because that will suck all that kind of value out of you as the founder.
What are some things you'd recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Yeah, you've got to have buy-in. The people you do hire have got to have buy-in into it. Officially they're employees, but they have stakes in the business. I gave them stakes in the business because they effectively were like co-founders because they were employees from day one.
Yep.
So I think that's important, and being open with all communication. So like, every meeting we have, they have access to everything. They have access to all the Xero accounts, all the data, everything. So it's not like I'm hiding what's in the bank account or the state of the business.
That's great.
I think that's really important because it purely from the fact that it's less stress for me.
Yeah.
That's not like, Graham, what's the answer? So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that question, but we'll figure it out. And that's great. And I think as founders, we try and be a bit like, I know everything.
Do you have in mind how many full-time equivalents you might want to scale to? I know you've got a team that you contract to outside of the current 3 of you, but do you have a goal to get to, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 core full-time equivalents?
3. I want to try and build this with 3.
Yeah.
And then just build a complete plug and play business around that.
Yeah.
That those people you may talk about may be in another entity. They may be, like a partner firm that we invested in, or they are licensing our product, or, it could be a business, it could be a franchise. But, I don't want to manage a cohort.
Yep.
I think that's personal choice. But if we can get to this, business to 10 million with 3 full-time employees, I'm happy. But that may mean 100 outsourced contractors.
Yep. No, I'm very much of that mindset these days. I think I left my last operational role a bit over 2 years ago now, where I had direct reports. I've got an offshore team of 5, I think now. I think I've just added another 1 or 2. And it's great not having to, have to worry about direct reports. It's a different thing. And I enjoyed that chapter and that time, but I'm enjoying now the simplicity of and the scalability of particularly leveraging offshore resources.
What's the simplicity factor? I love that idea.
Yep.
In terms of, that's the key, isn't it? The fact you've also got the contract is different, isn't it? Obviously literally the contract, but if you're working with offshore or outsourced or this sort of aligned team of contractors, they know that any time, like if they don't do the job, that's the end of the contract. Or if the business doesn't do well, that's the end. Like if they run out of money, that's it. They also run out of contract.
So I also think it's a different work ethic, though, particularly here in Australia and other developed nations, I think. So my team's across India, Pakistan, and the Philippines, and I find that it's just a very different work ethic. They love doing that kind of work, and it's highly valuable to them for what they're paid for their local, economy, and very different to other countries that I've seen, developed nations.
There's a lot of talent there.
Yeah.
We work a lot. We got team in India, we got team in Philippines like you. And for example, if you think about it, a whole bunch of our team are mothers.
Yeah.
And doing the service. They're amazing at service. They speak fluent English.
Yep.
Flexible hours, obviously. We've got young kids. Where else would they get jobs?
Exactly.
And these are talented people, and they just kind of this untapped talent out there that would, in their home market, they wouldn't have got a job.
Yep.
Like they couldn't go to the office. And I just think there's there are untapped opportunities in these markets that are better than domestic or local talent in many ways.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance, and you can't just write that off with your 6-year semi-retirement round the world trip.
Balance. What is balance, Troy?
Yeah.
That's the question, isn't it? Or you mean work-life balance?
Yeah, it can be, and it sounds like you're as passionate about small business and entrepreneurship as I am, but there's the other side of the coin sometimes, which is that it can be quite addictive, and you can work long hours, not because you have to, but because you love doing it. So I still struggle with it, and I've got things in place like my chocolate Labrador Carlton supporter and my daughter to get me out of the house, so I'm just not working all the time,
To hold you true.
Yes.
Maybe that's the answer, isn't it? Just have these reminders. Like if I don't stop working, these things aren't going to eat. Right?
Yeah, that's it.
I have to stop once in a while. This thing needs to go out for a walk. Yeah, like we need balance. I don't believe in work-life balance because I feel, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, that's it. That work is life. Life is work, right? They're inseparable. And I feel, obviously people who don't sign up for that don't understand the idea that we don't actually enjoy being away from the work. This is what we really enjoy. We really love it. Okay, yeah, there are days, Troy, when I wake up and I think, oh God, I don't feel the love today.
Yeah.
But very rarely do I wake up and feel that. And actually, I'm looking forward to the challenge, right? And no point to it. I mean, obviously, when we had the survival mode, it was a little bit different. But there's no point in the longer term. I'm really thinking I'm not enjoying this. So work-life balance, I say, is relative to whether you're an entrepreneur or not. And I think we shouldn't really look at it through the lens of people who aren't entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They don't understand it. I mean, for them, they're thinking about the 2 weeks in the sun because to de-stress from 50 weeks of just being beaten up in the office with office politics, right? So I don't have any of that. I work at home, right? Team's completely remote. So I don't feel the urge to go on vacation to escape everything. Like there's that quote, I think it's a Seth Godin quote. It's like, set up a life that you don't have to escape from, right? Yeah. And it worked for that, right? So there's that part of it. I mean, I'm not saying like then there's the flip side, which you mentioned, is like, how do you sort of draw boundaries in this?
Yeah.
It's really important because otherwise it's all consuming.
Yep.
I try to, for example, like small things in the house, like our internet turns off at 11 o'clock at night.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a bit of resistance. I've got a 16-year-old boy.
Yep. So
there's a little bit of resistance there. Like, there's a bit of training to do. Like, it's like, okay, like this ain't happening. Like if you turn that thing on, then I'm going to work till like 2 a.m. So I know when it flips off, it just breaks the pattern.
Yeah.
Right. It breaks the pattern. And those kind of things I think are really important. And so like in my household, we have these 2 rules. Like firstly, internet goes off at 11. And secondly, at the weekends, no computer before 1 o'clock.
Yep. It's good.
Because that just breaks the cycle of Saturday morning. I wake up and it's like, okay, I'll go and check my emails. That's it. That's the end.
I read something the other day, Graham, that was really disturbing. The iPhone was obviously invented or released in 2007. Then you got social media came along. So before the iPhone, the average person before they're 18 would interact with their family for 25,000 hours. Now, these days, it's 5,000 hours. It's a huge, it's like 80% of that time is evaporated, gone to social media and gaming and things like that. That's pretty
disturbing, yeah. That won't ever be got back either.
No.
Yeah. You got to, freedom requires discipline, which I think is something I've learned.
Yep.
It's like you have to fight for it. It's easy just to swim downstream with the current. But it's hard to swim upstream and stand for something, whether that means starting your business, but it also means, putting these boundaries in place. Like even, you can imagine the resistance you get from a teenage boy just by saying that you're not allowed to use the computer before 1, but that's for me as well, right?
Yeah.
And I think you've got to fight for those things. And then when you step back and you realize actually that's a really good idea. And look, now we're actually, as a family, sitting together around the table talking. It's like, yes. But like, if we just let the internet take over and business take over, you would never have that. And I guess the problem as well, Troy, you'd always be thinking, I'll do that when I've got this out of the way.
Yeah.
But that this out of the way never happens.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years?
I've never paid for coaching or courses in that respect. But I'm a great learner in the sense, I'm a great learner. I'm passionate about learning. Yep. I spend a lot of money on books, even old-fashioned paper books.
Yep.
I love them. And I think, for something $20 could change your life.
You
mentioned Stephen Covey, for example. I think about the 7 Habits. For me, it's like, that was like one of the first books I ever read, like back in the 90s. I thought, wow, this is the first time I ever realized I could change my life.
Yes.
For $20. So if you call that professional development, absolutely. I've invested a lot in that, but I haven't sort of taken courses. That's a bit harder for me. Somebody actually telling me what to do is a bit of an issue.
So you said you haven't used coaches mentioned before. You've had mentors. Anything else on mentors that you've had along the way?
Mentors have been an interesting journey, Troy, and something I'm open to ideas about. It's like I've had mentors and I've done it the wrong way. Spent a lot of money and, buying mentorship in my old business from people who had really good job titles, like were managing directors as they were back then of really senior companies, but had no experience of growing a startup.
Yep.
And so they knew nothing about the challenges, right? So that was a complete waste of money. I spent thousands. I was paying these guys like $1,000 to come for half a day.
Wow.
And just sort of, like literally have like a 3-hour session, 2-hour session.
Yeah.
That was more ego more than anything.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I think mentorship only really works when there's skin in the game. They've got, like I always think if somebody gives you advice and the advice goes wrong, what's the cost to them?
Yes.
If the cost is zero, then it's like, don't take their advice.
Yep.
So I would always say, like I have some great mentors in the business in that they're advisors and they have a very small, like with a FAST agreement, FAST agreement, advisory arrangement. They have some great background experience, whether they're like venture capitalists or they are startup founders themselves. I think those work so much better.
Yep.
I haven't I tell you, I've looked at services and I paid for services like growthmentor.com,
right,
which is kind of interesting. You pay a few $100 a month.
Yep.
And you can kind of pick out mentors. That was actually quite good because you can then pay and say, right, Troy, I want you to teach me about Google AdWords an hour.
Is that like, I haven't looked at growthmentor.com. I've just written that down to check it out. Is that like clarity.fm? Have you seen that?
Yeah. I had a whole bunch of those sort of lined up and I went through them all. And Growth Mentor was sort of the easiest, especially because I was doing a lot of pay-per-click. And I also, went to Upwork and explored that and said, look, I'll pay you for an hour. Just tell me what I need to do in this situation. Yeah. So when it comes to mentoring, I think like paying for it actually works really well for me.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of coaching or anything like that personally.
And with the seed round coming in, so do you have a board of directors now?
That is myself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a seed round is, I'm not saying it's not a lot of money, but it wasn't one that needed extra jurisprudence in the business,
Well, you're one of the few we've had it on that's exited a business. You got any other final advice for the audience on exiting?
Yeah, exiting. I mean, because I can't really advise people on a good exit.
Well, that's still good advice.
Yeah, you're right. Obviously in my network and with my advisors as well, I'm very fortunate to have a lot of people who have exited businesses and had multiple exits of business, which seems to be the case. Like to one investor in the business, actually, so two investors in the business have both exited twice. So when it comes to exit, I think the key is find yourself people who've done it before.
Yeah.
And actually, it seems to be a game. It's like, there's a rule to the game, which is like you can work with exit advisors, who will, basically tell you, like, if you want to exit in 3 to 4 years, this is what you need to do, right? And this is how you beautify your business to a potential buyer. So there are rules which you can play. And I think when you're ready for that, to go through that process, right? The alternative is sort of just kind of figuring it out by chance, which a lot of people do. But there's people who specifically build businesses to sell them, as you probably know, and your experience as well. Is that, that's something that you can learn and do. So it's easily learnable from people, but people who have done it, I think that's the key.
Well, Graham, on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Staying sane. And not losing your hair.
Well, I'm well past that.
Well, you're still sane.
Yes.
I'm halfway on both, right?
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Oh God, there's so many. There's so many. Obviously Stephen Covey, I think, was the one I mentioned earlier. Anything by Seth Godin, I'm a big fan of. Like more on storytelling side. Anything by, I've read a lot about Amazon and Toyota recently. Big fan of those. Toyota Way, And I'm just looking behind me here. Think like Amazon, the Toyota way, Toyota management system. Yeah, I love all that. There's so much of that because it's not. There's a lot of stuff that's either like really in the weeds technical or stuff which is sort of very broad, like more almost like autobiographical.
The Toyota stuff's great. That's the like lean manufacturing or the lean movement, really.
Oh yeah, I mean it's so good. I mean obviously a lot of the startup, culture came from that, right? But there's so many insights in there you can think about. Oh, I can apply this to my business. The idea of visuals.
Yep.
The idea of visual dashboards came to us through that, and that was like transformed our business.
Yeah, and I enjoy the Seth Godin stuff on his email newsletter as well, which is just little vignettes every day, which just changes the way you think. He's a great marketeer and just thinks differently to most other marketeers.
Yeah, it's good. I like the idea of vignettes as well.
Yeah,
it is, isn't it? It's like 5 lines.
That's it. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
This one, of course.
Yeah,
that's a good starting point. There's so much. It really, podcast-wise, 4 million podcasts in the world. It's like just go and find the stuff, right, that works for you. To be honest, actually, I spend a lot of time now reading and listening to stuff not related to business.
Yeah,
I think that's more important. Like if you look at my Kindle now, I don't want to read another business book right now. Mm-hmm. I want to kind of get away from that. So I'm reading stuff like about Putin.
Yep.
It's like completely unrelated, but it just takes me away.
Yes.
Or like read like history or whatever. But I think that's really important. Like maybe that answers your question earlier about balance. It's like you've got to have time out. Like if I go to bed and I read a business book, it makes me really anxious.
Right.
My mind's like operating. It's like just cranked. I might as well just drink a black coffee before going to bed, right?
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Tools is something I love discovering and investing in as well. Recently, I'll just name a bunch that I've used recently. Retool. Retools are great. I mean, if you know SQL, sort of like database.
Unfortunately, I do.
Oh, you do? Okay. So
one of my degrees is computing. Yes.
Lovely. All right. So you know your select queries.
Yes, I do.
Retool's great.
Right.
So Retool, it's not just SQL, but it just basically it acts like a front end to plug in all the back end. So you can plug in a SQL database, you can plug in, HubSpot, you can plug in Gmail, everything. It acts as a front end dashboard for that. Really like that. That's been really good journey. SQL.io is another one, which again, similar kind of thing. Those are just all tools to help you build visuals of your business, to help you see inside and see what's going on, put it in one place. And they interact really well with Google Sheets. They will connect with services like Zapier. I'm a big Zapier fan, which kind of automates all the back end. So, those tools do a lot of heavy lifting. And if you can kind of get all your data in front of you and shared with the team, you can really see what's going on in insight.
Have you looked at datastudio.google.com?
Yeah.
It's just, I only came across that in the last month or so. It blew my mind.
Yeah, that's a really good tool. I would say Retool and Data Studio are very similar.
Right.
They do a similar kind of thing. Like obviously Data Studio is more about visualizing the charts and stuff. But, those tools are powerful. And if you can spend some time figuring them out or even hire somebody to do it for you, you can see like your business so much clearer.
Yeah.
And just one point about, about in terms of cash flow, but like when you apply that to lead generation, it's a game changer.
Final and my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
What would I tell myself?
Back in 98, starting out in business.
It's going to take longer than you think.
Yeah. Have you heard of the rule of 4x7? 4x2?
Tell me.
So I don't know if it's in the UK, but 4x2 is a bit of wood.
Yeah, right.
But I actually was living in London when I heard these venture capitalists talk about the rule of 4x2, because obviously a lot of entrepreneurs hitting him up for his money. And he said it'll either take you 4 times as long and cost twice as much, or take twice as long and cost 4 times as much. The difference is you get to choose which.
4B2.
Yep.
I like that. That's good. That's cool. I think I've chosen 4 times as long.
Yeah.
Twice as much.
Yeah.
That's so true though, isn't it? Like
it is.
We completely underestimate. And that I think that comes, we talked about starting a business on your own and the patience. I think you learn patience in the second time round, third time round, fourth time round, whatever it may be. You understand that things take time, and therefore, if the universe isn't bending to your will, just chill. Yep. It's gonna happen. That's why you need good data to say, okay, well, it's grown 2% this week. That's fine. It's grown.
Yep, that's it. Well, mate, thank you very much for your time. I'm sure we could speak for another couple of hours, but really appreciate you coming on the cast, and I think the audience get a lot of value out of your journey. 2 companies, and you've got 3 FTE now, cracked $1 million a year, which is a fantastic effort, and really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Troy. It's great being here.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.